It smacks of disrespect that the club that gave him the opportunity. Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the First4LCFC podcast. Once again, my name's Jamie Thorpe and I'm joined by the other two First4LCFC admins, Christian Mosen and our Dutch colleague, Edward Nick.
Stop calling me Dutch. I'm not Dutch.
I've had a couple of comments since that, actually, asking where your accent is. Some comments I won't repeat, but nonetheless, maybe you want to clear up for our listeners. Just talk us through where you were born.
What are the ones that you can't discuss? Discuss them all. If
I was a listener, I'd be wondering, where are you from? It's not a Leicester accent, is it? But do you know what I mean? It's confusing.
Maybe we should have done like an introduction in the first episode to each of us, just to let everyone know who we are, who you're listening to.
Maybe you sound more foreign than I do.
That you're Ed's Dutch, I'm old, and Chris, you need something revealed about you. Right.
That's true, so it's not as funny. Well, yeah, I was born and raised in Ashby de la Zouch, which, while sounding foreign, is not. But I've been living in the Sheffield area for 7 years now, so
definitely not a Sheffield accent. I'll give you that one.
No. Maybe a mixture of both. I've ended up sounding Dutch apparently. So
big Dutch head, as we call him. Right. So look, as always, we're going to review the big Leicester City talking points from last week, looking at previous games, transfer speculation, answering your questions, looking ahead to the next week, and just about anything else in between. Once again, it's been an important weekend for the Premier League. Games affecting both ends of the table, but it was one that impacted the title race that we're going to start. A game where there was a clear winner, thanks to some exceptional attacking play by some of the league's most potent forwards. Obviously, I'm not talking about Liverpool, Man City. I'm talking about Leicester's win over Arsenal. A match that saw the Foxes move into second place. Chris, I know you like to get stuck into Arsenal, so instead of focusing on Leicester, we may as well just let you get straight into it. Arsenal came, they set up pretty negatively, in my view, playing on the counter. Do you think that's a mark of respect to Leicester, or is it simply an indictment of where Arsenal are as a club now?
Well, first of all, it didn't surprise me. I mean, it's a mix of both, isn't it? I'm not going to sit here and absolutely lambast Arsenal. I think if they played anything other than that, the scoreline could have been a lot worse than what it was. In the first half, it was competitive, so they obviously came with a game plan and it was sort of working. If it weren't for poor finishing last week, I said their best element were their strikers, and they sort of got in each other's way in the end and missed quite a clear-cut opportunity that could have put them ahead. But yeah, other than that, I think I predicted we'd start fast, but if anything, we ended really sharply. So it flipped it on its head, and yeah, ultimately we got the better of them. With Gray, I think I need to praise Gray for his impact. But yeah, ultimately a lack of spine in that Arsenal team, and they just sort of flopped, didn't they, in the end? And I think on the balance of play, we probably deserved all 3 points, and 2-0 was a nice round scoreline.
Yeah, I think we dominated possession from the get-go. But the biggest difference, Ed, I guess, is between the two sides is that Leicester seem to possess a clear identity and a togetherness at the moment. They weathered the storm a little bit against Arsenal, didn't they? But as Chris said, were you impressed with how strongly they finished the game?
Yeah, I think weirdly, in a game at which we are delighted with the result and the performance, really, I'll first say credit where credit's due to Arsenal. Actually, a lot of people thought the game would be extremely, Leicester fans anyway, thought we could have beat them by more than we did. And at least in the first half, they tried a new formation, new style of play, and it worked. It was stunting us. They were getting men behind the ball at all times, and they were really hard to break down. And I do think, like we've said off air, that the first goal was key. Some would say lucky, some would say it was fair. The Aubameyang goal wasn't given. If it wasn't for VAR and it was given, who knows how the game would have gone. But ifs and buts.
If it wasn't VAR, was it? He was offside.
Yeah, but I don't think
the linesman had his flag up.
Call me if I'm wrong, but did he put his flag up?
Yeah, it was up.
All right, well there we go. Got egg on my face with that point.
But speaking of VAR, Chris, there was one that, I mean, because I was obviously in the ground and missed it, and I was unsure as to why it never got looked at in more depth. The pull on Soyuncu, that's a penalty, isn't it?
To be fair with you, I didn't watch the game live. I was caught the highlights up and they didn't actually show that on the highlights I was watching. The other thing was the Ndidi handball, which, well, again, this season there's no consistency in VAR. So I haven't actually seen the Sionchu one, but I think Ed has because I remember him texting me about it at the time.
Yeah, it is a pen. Going by the age-old metric of how we determine whether it's a pen, as we've discussed on this podcast before, if it happened the other way, I feel like we would have gotten away with one big time, and you'd be getting worried watching that back on a replay. So for me, Soyuncu may not have even got the ball, but the fact is he put his hand on his shoulder and pulled him back. Given that they did take a look at it, I am very surprised that it wasn't given.
Yeah, it seemed clear and obvious to me. But
that's what I think, because I've seen one of these tables that floats around social media about like, who's gained the most points from VAR, and I think we've been critical of it, but I think we're like in the top 4 teams who've benefited the most as well. So, but like Ed says, I think a couple of weeks ago, I think by the end of the season, 90% of it would have balanced itself out. I think obviously some teams will come off worse. Obviously Pep Guardiola had an absolute stinker yesterday. But we're not going to talk about that too much, but that was absolutely atrocious what happened in that game. And obviously I don't think they're going to really change VAR. You can't. It's an unfair advantage if they sort of scrap it halfway through the season. But I don't know. There's so many flaws with it. And yeah, ultimately we were probably lucky from what you've said on Saturday. But yeah, VAR is a whole different topic, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think VAR or no VAR, Leicester deserved to win the game. I don't think you can question that. Looking at the individuals, though, Ed, was there anyone? We always like to pick out individuals who have stood out. Is there anyone who you think particularly impressed?
Well, it's difficult because I kind of say the same thing every week. Like players like Maddison and Tielemans, just like. They're so creative, and maybe it wasn't their best game of the season, but they were still making chances, always looked positive when on the ball. I also thought Perez looked a danger before he went off, and I think what's that? Is that 3-4 games now, something like that? We've picked up on him, like after a very slow start, got dropped. We've all criticised him at some point, but now he's just every time he's on the ball, he's looking nippy, he's wanting to do something, and fair play, it doesn't always come off, but it's that willingness to try something a bit different and be creative out wide that it's kind of exciting now. He's slowly getting into his groove.
Yeah,
I think it's obviously Ed's mentioned the obvious ones, which I'm sort of grateful for. We haven't even spoke about this off air, but someone I want to pick up on is Gray, his impact. I mean, look, I'm the first one to hold my hands up to say I've criticised him in this pod. I think we all have, to be fair, but that's what I mean. We've also spoke about Rodgers leaving him out of the squad, leaving him out of the match day squad, not starting him. But when he comes on, he's obviously got fire in his belly. He's obviously willing to prove a point. He's not lost his his calmness. Like he's not rushing with the ball. He'd rather play pass back, but he also sees the opportunities to go forwards. And he was influential in both the goals, wasn't he? Ultimately, so hats off to him. And it's good that what Rodgers is obviously teaching him or whatever off the field is obviously paying dividends now. Well, at least in this match, so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers could have potentially played a bit of a blinder with the whole leaving him out of the squad at the start of the season, giving him a bit of a challenge in the press and bringing him back on, because for me, he made the difference. The energy he added in with the simple thing, the run behind Holding to pick the ball up in the lead up to the first goal. It was that sort of thing where he was really important. We normally do questions in a separate section, but it leads me quite nicely onto one we've had through Twitter. As always, everyone, please do send them in on Twitter and Facebook. We do like to go through as many of them as we can. We've had loads this week, which is great. Apologies if I pronounce any names wrong. But one from Rich Kinnaird and said, do we give Gray a chance to start after his performance of the weekend, or do you think he's better served as an impact sub? Ed, I think that's probably one for you for now.
I would say, assuming that you can get Gray and MAHREZ into the same team, that I'd be willing to give it a bash because, you know, we've been playing great, but Harvey Barnes hasn't exactly been pulling up trees, and it's not just like a one-off good performance from Gray. Yes, it's only super sub appearances, but it's got to be, again, 3 or 4 games he's come on and he's done something. He's either got an assist or he's done something that's led to an assist being made for a goal. And, you know, even on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, we were near enough unanimous that he's got to step up now, or else this is going to be it for his Leicester career.
Well, yeah, I think we said he'd be suited for the Championship, didn't we? Well, that was me. I'll put my hands up again, but yeah, I mean, obviously proven his worth, and like I said, it must be something. He obviously wants to prove a point, and that's good. But whether or not he's anything more than an impact player just yet, maybe it's more of a gradual thing. Obviously, we've got a lot of games coming up over Christmas, so maybe Brendan Rodgers just bides his time with this one, and I'm sure he'll have to have an opportunity to start, especially when the FA Cup and that kicks in if we stay in the League Cup, etc. So, yeah, maybe it's a case of being patient.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for the pace of Gray against tired legs as well, which has an impact on the selection, I guess. But it's interesting the point you make about Harvey Barnes, because one of the comments that we've had was that we were perhaps a little bit unfair on Harvey Barnes last week with the perceived criticism of him. I think it was more constructive criticism than anything else. But it just didn't seem to happen for him again this week. He was getting in good positions and picking the ball up at the right times and being positive, but just can't quite seem to get that goal. Ed is suggesting that Demarai Gray should come into the side at the expense of Harvey Barnes, which may be perceived as being a little bit harsh on Barnes. Do you think that, I know that he's not quite getting the goals that his play deserves, do you think that he's doing enough to hold on to his place in the side?
It's a difficult one, because I get, like, to the listeners, it could come across like I've just got an agenda every week. And as I've already admitted, I didn't have the opportunity to watch this game live, so I'm not going to purely base it on this. But just from what you guys and how you've introduced this, if it is a case that he's making all the runs and he's looking for the ball and he's doing all those things right, but it's just not working out for him. Like, something I find frustrating in him is that he just does the obvious thing too much, and that might sound like a strange thing to say, but I do feel at this level you can't just. It's not just about being obvious. You got to disguise your play. You got to chuck a step over in here, there. Just be a bit different. And he is direct, which is good, but I just feel it doesn't necessarily fit the way Rodgers wants us to play. Obviously, keeping possession and stuff. He's got to look for that intelligent pass sometimes. And that's my main frustration with him. That he's great, he's direct, he's explosive, but that's not necessarily fitting with the tempo we're playing at always.
No, it's an interesting point. And another question that we've had in, Ed, I think this is one for you, regarding Barnes and MAHREZ and the setup. It's from Oscar Dabagano, and he says, "Hello guys, don't you think that the current midfield setup with Big Wilf covering the 4 Musketeers isn't making the most of MAHREZ and Barnes?" Do you think that could be said, Ed?
I think we're second in the league table, and it would be. I am remiss to critique the style of play and formation that we're playing. However, I don't know. I think having Wilf as that sort of player to protect the back 4, I don't know. I feel like most of the attacking players have quite a free rein to go and do what they want within reason. Like, obviously they got to track back and stuff, but you know, Tielemans is a creative midfielder. Maddison obviously is, as are Barnes and MAHREZ. So I don't know. I may have to disagree with the valued follower there.
No, that's a fair point. I think they do tend to find themselves, obviously, as part of the system, very wide at times and quite isolated. But I think that they get themselves involved enough at the moment, and it creates the space for our fullbacks and our midfield. So sometimes when they seem like they're not in the game, they are still playing an important role. So I personally wouldn't want to see the system changed. Just on the game, finally, just to sort of tidy it up, I personally thought Wilfred Ndidi was fantastic. He had their midfield in his pocket by himself. Arsenal fans have been raving about Torreira and Guendouzi, but frankly, Ndidi made him look like they just turned up from Sunday League. He was just different gravy again. Some stats. We love some stats. Only the first time we've won 3 consecutive home games against Arsenal. Shows that maybe the times are changing. First time we've won 5 Premier League home games in a row. Second time, sorry. Last time we did it was in May 2017 under Craig Shakespeare. Arsenal, on the other hand, haven't won in their last 5 away games, which sucks to be them. Right, so looking ahead for Leicester, because we know we've got the international break and that's boring, but we will touch on it in a minute. Chris, do you think that the next 5 games are potentially the ones, because a lot's been talked about Leicester now and being in the title race and everyone's having a bit of a joke about it, but don't you feel like the next 5 games are going to be pivotal? So for context, we play Brighton at home away before welcoming Everton and Watford at home, travel to Villa, and then we play Norwich, all teams in the bottom half at present.
Okay, so I'll break your question into 2. First of all, the jokey title race comment. Yeah, we're not in a title race, but as I remind you two, who you do have your negative moments, Ed especially. Like, look, for as long as we're second, I'd rather be looking up, chasing the team, rather than looking down, worrying about what's below us. But that's just my mentality. But yes, in terms of the matches, it's slightly worrying for me because it's just all too good to be true at the moment. Obviously, all these teams, I think, at present are in the bottom half. And on paper, if you're going to ask me to sort of predict, I can't see anything other than 15 points. Trickiest game, if you have to push me for one, is probably just based on current form and how they've started under a new manager. I'd say Brighton, but I mean, historically, not the most difficult place to go. Like, again, that's you pushing me for an answer if I had to put one. Obviously, Villa, a local sort of game, but none of these teams are really impressive. So, yeah, on paper, I'd say 15 points. But, you know, if we come off the back of that, taking 12 or more, we're probably still going to be sat top, well, I'd say definitely top 3. But, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to push me for why we can't beat all those teams, really, to be fair, Jamie.
And that is obviously just before heading into 3 pretty important games with the EFL Cup quarter-final against Everton before playing Man City away and then Liverpool at home. Ed, how important do you think it is that we take some momentum into that run? And if we can pick up a lot of points, as Chris has said, do you think that we can then maybe even start to not even joke about it and think, hold on, we've got a chance here?
I think you can sort of split. Well, for me, we'll discuss any genuine title or even genuine confident top 4 prediction around New Year's. But to get to that stage, you can definitely split our fixtures in 2, really. And we've got to overcome both of these hurdles to get to the point where we're in the discussion. So the first hurdle, this metaphorical hurdle, will be the next 5 games or whatever you say it is. These are games that are teams going for top 6, let alone top 4, let alone going for the title. We need to be winning at least the majority of these.
Only one of these teams is would have said they're going for top 6 at the start of the season. Everton.
There we go. We need to be winning. It's 5 games, yeah?
Yeah.
We need to be getting 4 wins at least. And come on.
Sorry.
Come on.
Sorry.
Mid-flow, I was making good metaphorical hurdle-related points.
You were. I don't know how to. I don't normally use my Mac, and I don't know how to turn it off.
Right. Anyway, we've got these fixtures. We need to win these. I expect us to do that. However, once we've put ourselves in the position, we have that horrendous run over Christmas where let me get the fixtures up and I'll tell you exactly who it is.
To be fair, it's not even that bad over Christmas. It's just Man City and Liverpool.
It's in the space of 10 days. Everton away, Man City at home, Everton away, Man City away, Liverpool at home, West Ham away. In the space of 10 days, that's a tough run. We get
West Ham are garbage.
Well, perhaps so, but away from home after just playing Man City and Liverpool in the space of a few days, and only after a 2-day rest from the game before, that's a tough game. So if we get past Newcastle, which is the New Year's Day game, in and around where we are now, then I'd be more than happy to have a discussion about new goals for the season.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is park it until then. Enjoy what we're doing at the moment, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, basically.
I'm still saying top four.
I think top four is a fair comment. I think we've given ourselves a great foundation, haven't we? I mean, we're currently several points ahead of fifth, and the chance is definitely there. I mean, it's the best opportunity we've had to do this for a long time.
But you got to look at it this way, right? And this is just logical thinking. We have to have a severe drop off in form, and that means losing 5-6 games over the next 15, 20 sort of matches. And then that also means that teams from 5th to 10th have to suddenly become as in form as what we are. And that's just probability talking. That's not going to happen. Both those things aren't going to happen. So that's the way I'm seeing it. But I don't personally see... I mean, the only thing that could go wrong for us, and it's what we get asked every week, is if VARDY gets injured. That is the main worry. I think he's the most... He has to be the first name on team sheet. People like Maddison, Tielemans, they're great players, don't get me wrong. But I feel we've got players like Pratt who can step in. VARDY is irreplaceable. Just to talk about his finish against Arsenal, that's instinct. It looks easy on TV, but on that surface, and just to even want to take that first time, when he probably did have time to take a touch, he's absolutely on flames right now. Yeah. And he's a massive piece in the part the way we play as well. So I don't know. Other than a VARDY injury, I just don't see us suddenly becoming a different team. It's down to style. We got to remember we're not winning games because we're being lucky or VAR's constantly helping us. We are dominating teams, and there's more than there's more than just results to it, isn't there? We're playing a totally different brand of football to what we're used to, and maybe a lot of the fans aren't actually appreciating that, thinking that classic Leicester, it's all going to fall apart. But we've got to remember we've got probably the best British manager in the game right now, and we've got to trust him that it's going to carry on.
Definitely. I think an interesting thing with VARDY is that under Ranieri, for example, he scored a goal every 167 minutes. Under Rodgers, he's doing it every 99 minutes. He does seem to be getting better and better. But one thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, Chris, was that Gareth Southgate was in the press saying he's monitoring Jamie Vardy and says he's prepared to consider recalling him. Doesn't feel now is the right time to include him. I mean, obviously, we'd rather keep him to ourselves, wouldn't we? But B, doesn't that it just smacks me as still being quite disrespectful? Does it? Because like you said, he's one of the best strikers in the game at the moment. He's streets ahead of any of the other English players apart from Abraham. Sure, don't you think that? I just don't like the words that he used there. Prepared to consider recalling Vardy.
I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt that you got to remember he's got to be protecting other strikers that are in the squad. I don't think he can come out and say, Vardy, I wish we could have Vardy. I mean, let's face it, I do think that's what he's thinking. And I do think that should Vardy say, look, okay, fair enough, I'm available in the summer, he's going on that plane. Well, I say plane. They're playing most of the games at home, I think. But yeah, no, nonetheless, I just think that the way in which Southgate said those quotes is probably mindful that he needs to protect his current crop of players, and there's no secrets in that. Southgate is a very good public speaker in terms of stuff he comes out and says in front of the press. So yeah, I think he's desperate for VARDY. He's like, he's streets ahead of Kane at the moment in terms of form, but like I said, they've got players like Abraham and stuff. So yeah, the top two strikers in the country at the moment, aren't they?
Definitely. I do think one of the mistakes that Hodgson made, maybe saying this with blue tinted glasses, but was not incorporating VARDY into the team better. I think he used him as a bit part player, often out of position, and he still did bits for England. But there you go.
Just to summarise, there's no guarantee that if VARDY gets in the England team, he's going to fit the style of play still, because England is still. I mean, I guess it's sort of a similar shape, really, but there just seemed to be that sense that players didn't actually appreciate how good VARDY was on the pitch with them. Maybe that's, again, was watching it with sort of Fox's tinted glasses, but I always felt he was underappreciated, almost like, we're not going to pass to him. He's not technically as good as us, but, ultimately he's a goal scorer. That's what you want in a number 9 position.
Yeah, and he's done it consistently, hasn't he? And I think
I was just going to say, sorry for butting in. I got butted in, so I'm going to do it back now. Southgate's always good manager, obviously, done amazing things with England, and through his experiences, his time with the under-21s, he's sort of developed that it is a project and bringing through the next crop of players. And personally, why I think he's framing it this way is that he's thinking, is there any value in actually bringing him in if he's not going to play, like be first choice? Because that place could be given to a player who would gain much more from being a member of the squad and maybe getting 10 minutes of action in one game than perhaps VARDY would gain from that. So I'm thinking of players like, well, at the minute, well, he's obviously his team's horrendously out of form at the minute, but it's hard to argue that Harry Kane shouldn't start for England. Well, when you look past that, they're not going to play 2 up front, I imagine, given they've got
Tammy Abraham over Harry Kane right now.
Well, that's what. If you let me get to my point, man.
Right,
they're not going to start 2 up front because they've got the likes of Sterling and Sancho and Hudson-Odoi and whoever on the wing. So there's only one. You have Kane, who's captain. He's going to have to be first choice. Tammy Abraham's up there, and unlike VARDY, could be around for another 7, 8, 9, 10 years. You've got players like Rashford, who again, whilst not in form with club, has done it on an international stage, and again, he's going to be around for years to come. So at best, you could see VARDY come in as 4th choice. So
I disagree with that. He's not going to be used as a starter, but you're not going to have a better experienced player to bring on. Like, in terms of England need to close something they've never closed before, in terms of winning the Euros. Like, you can't just be bringing on youth for youth. Like, I get what your points are, Rashford, yeah, great, and all that. But to have VARDY in the squad, I think Southgate would snap his arm off at the opportunity.
Yeah, but I bet, without knowing the stats, I bet Rashford's got more England caps than VARDY. So surely...
Yeah, that doesn't make a better player, come on.
No, I mean, from the experience point of view, like, obviously, if it's purely we're saying, like, international football is going to end after the Euros, and it's so you're purely picking the best players you've got, there's probably more of an argument to put him in the squad. But I just think, and again, it's not bad news for us. In fact, I think it's good news. The less minutes he gets, the better for us. But I just think, if Harry Kane got injured, and there's an interesting one, if he got injured, then I'd probably call him up and start him.
You can't just go from not including him to starting him. Surely it has to be an in between. Like
I also think if you have Rashford, Kane, and Abraham in the squad, given you're only going to play one up front at any time, is there even room for a fourth?
well, I think you traditionally take 4 strikers, don't you? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I'll get the last England squad up and I'll get back to it.
It's not important, but I guess the point being, I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. If Vardy is only going to be playing 5-10 minutes, yeah, I'd rather leave him out because, let's face it, you'd rather see him being on holiday, relaxing, than still having to train over the summer, etc.
There were 4 strikers last time, by the way. The 4th is Callum Wilson.
Well, see, because my point largely is that I agree with you. There's no point in going if he's not going to play. Is he going to be 3rd or 4th choice? But my point is I don't think he should be that far down the pecking order. I think that England would be, especially for a tournament, for one tournament this year coming up, yeah, it probably doesn't serve the future of England football particularly well. But I would think that England would be better off starting Vardy at this current moment in time over any of the other strikers that could be wearing an England shirt.
Well, I've got a question for you then. How bad a season, and I'm talking goals, that's all that matters here, does Harry Kane have to not start for England? I'm not talking about Vardy starting instead. Just how bad a season does he have to have? I'm not even sure how many goals he's on now, but
I think he wouldn't have to score again. I genuinely think what he's done with England, is he not the captain, or have I totally missed something?
No, he's the captain, you're right.
I think it'd be disgusting, to be fair, if he didn't score again and he starts for England. I think that'd come in for huge scrutiny. Like,
you know how rubbish we think he's done this season? Relative. He's got 10 goals in 14 games in all competitions. What a player. What a goal scorer. Yeah.
Yeah, but you think he's world class, and I automatically disagree with that.
He's going to be the leading goal scorer in all-time Premier League football.
Yeah, he scored.
It's hard to do that when you move to Real Madrid in a couple of seasons, but
Wouldn't do that if he's not world class.
Well, he's not world class at the moment. He's not going to go to Real Madrid this summer. But I mean, if he's as good as you're making out, he's not going to stick around.
I'm pulling your leg, son. Don't.
Either way, I don't rate. I mean, obviously, I rate Harry Kane, decent little player, but
he's a great player when he's on form. But my point was, I think that Vardy should have been treated with a bit more. Should have been given more of an opportunity.
I think we digressed a bit there, haven't we?
Yeah, Ed, you were spot on, by the way. Marcus Rashford, at this current moment in time, has 36 caps and 8 goals for England. Jamie Vardy only made 26 caps and yet scored 7 goals for England. So he did do
4.
well, and that was, like I said, bit part player a lot of the time, playing out of position.
Oh man, that goal against Germany.
I mean, we're not going to work this out now. I don't want us to, because this will make for awful listening. But I want to see what Harry Kane's record, if we just take the world official FIFA rankings against the top, 15 teams, what his actual goal record is. Compared to someone like Vardy or anyone else, because I don't think it'd be that spectacular.
You think he scores against the lesser teams?
I think he scores against everyone, but I'm saying it's not necessarily his fault that England are often drawn in easy groups or etc. stuff like that. It's out of his control. But compare him to other players in decades gone by, I think he has had an easier run. Yeah. But we're not going to work that out. Don't even try and work that out. So shall we move on with this now?
Otherwise there is a danger that we're going to be here all night. So what we'll do is we'll move over to the questions. And again, like I said, we have had loads, so we'll try and get through as many as we can. But this is social media, so the names are sometimes more difficult for me. But one that I can pronounce is Baller Barnes on Twitter. Thank you for sending in your question. If we get Champions League this year, do you reckon we are more appealing for bringing in players than Arsenal or United? I know that you're both going to have completely contrasting points here. So
Ed's actually started sucking up about Arsenal now, hasn't he? From the chat that obviously none of our listeners would have read earlier. But Ed's eating his words that I believe a quote would be that people might actually rather join Leicester than Arsenal at the moment. Is that correct?
I said that as it stands, i.e., the question is in relation to what we do at the end of the season. So the question is if we get into the Champions League.
If we get to the Champions League, so you guess that is at the expense of Man United and Arsenal. So assuming they get Europa League, for the sake of we're in Champions League, who do you think players?
I think Leicester in the Champions League, given all the extra contextual stuff around the club and the vibe of the place at the minute, is a bigger draw than Arsenal in the Europa League. However, Leicester in the Champions League is not as big a draw as Man United in the Europa League.
No, you are right. I'd rather pay in front of 70,000 neutrals every week, to be fair.
Put it this way, when Man U were in the Europa League a few seasons ago, they signed Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Paul Pogba. I don't think we'd do that.
Why haven't they done that again this season, just out of interest?
Well, they signed our centre-back for 70-odd million.
And still...
I just think, hey, Man U in the Europa League are still one of the biggest draws in world football, and it's absolutely no shame.
How many more years can this go on for? Like, in 10 years' time, will we still be saying that? Because I'm just getting bored of all this club history stuff now. Like, we've grown up in an era, well, Jamie, maybe an exception of you being 20 years older.
Thank you.
But, like, we've grown up in an era where, like, we were young, and yeah, they were great, but for the last 10, 15 years, they've not actually been that great. So... like, how long can this go on?
In the last 10 years?
Yeah, like Arsenal not won like barely anything. Like, why are we still talking about? Like, Spurs have literally not won anything of note that I can remember, but they're still heralded as a big club. Like, we weren't alive in the 80s to remember them being decent. So when does it get dated is what I'm getting at.
When they stop finished. I know you hate the idea of what I'm about to say.
You're about to agree with Paul Merson that just because you go on bigger tours and you've got a bigger commercial side,
I'm going to say the sign of a big club in the contemporary age is to be qualifying for European competition year after year. That's why Spurs are considered a big club at the minute, because they've done it for 7, 8, 9 years now. If they were to fall out for 7, 8, 9 years now, they wouldn't, because other than qualifying for Europe, they've not done much.
Not won any silverware.
Well, that's what I mean. So if they were to lose that European draw, then they would fall away a lot quicker.
Okay, so someone like Harry, so you're saying he should be satisfied staying at Spurs because they're constantly qualifying for Europe. Surely you got to think of it as a professional footballer.
Yeah, if Europe doesn't matter,
you need to win something.
Yeah, but to critique that then, if Europe doesn't matter, would Harry Kane be more likely to leave if they didn't get into Europe? Of course he would. So hence, Europe matters.
Harry Kane would leave Spurs if they're in the Champions League for the next 2 years and they've not won anything.
But he would leave. I wouldn't be surprised if he left Spurs this year if they didn't get into Europe. Whereas if they qualify for the Champions League this year, I think he'd probably stay.
It's an interesting one. It's certainly, obviously, it's my opinion versus yours, so neither of us are right, but I can see it from your point of view. I just feel like it's just so much talk about history and not even history, like what you're saying, if you can't constantly qualifying for Europe, you're a big club. Like, I do get it commercially, it's true, and it's all fun playing in the Champions League, but it ultimately doesn't actually amount for anything at the end of your career.
Well, that's Spurs, which I will agree with you. If they miss out on the Champions League for 4, 5, 6 years, their size of club will regress very quickly. Teams like as the other ones, the other big six, will not, because I've just gone onto their Wikipedia to say, what have Man U done in the last 10 years? Since 2010, they've won 10 trophies.
Yeah.
That's why.
Break them down just for me, please.
Since 2010, they've won 2 Premier Leagues, the FA Cup, the League Cup, 2 League Cups, sorry, the Community Shield 4 times.
We're not counting that. So.
The Europa League.
Okay, so the majority of those were towards the first half of that 10 years, which is fair enough. But I did say 10 years, so you quoted me
I
there.
don't think Arsenal have won much, though.
No, they've won a couple of FA Cups, haven't they?
Which is why, again, I'd say they will fall off a lot. If we're saying we want to break into this, then teams like Spurs and Arsenal are probably, given they've not won anything for a while, will be the easiest pickings to sort of their draw will go much quicker than the others. Let's put it that way.
It's interesting. So,
in my opinion.
Let's just bringing this back on track, because there is a way to not just adding into your debate, because it is an interesting debate. And I'll just sat here silent for the best part 10 minutes. But one of the questions is that, speaking of size of clubs, one of the questions I had on Twitter from a man with no name, just goes by the moniker M. Is it time for Leicester to alter their wage structure to stave off approaches from so-called bigger clubs and keep our best players? Is money? Do we simply just need to start paying our players more money in order to compete with these bigger clubs?
I think it's interesting because on paper or on the face of it, you'd always think pay players more money, they'll be happier. But I think we are unique, and I think a lot of other neutral fans would agree that our ownership is very rare in the modern era, in the way that we give the manager full reign of transfers. He's actually in charge of that. Obviously, the owners are generous. They actually care about the club. They're not treating it as a business. And I think that it's something that we'll never really know until when these players might speak about it once they're retired. But there's obviously so many other motivational factors and reasons that players want to play for Leicester City and under Brendan Rodgers at present, other than money. I think you got to be careful if you're going to start bringing external players in on big money who haven't bought into the whole notion of the club. That's when it could start rocking the boat. So I'd be wary, in answer to the question, of rocking the structure externally. If we're going to increase our existing players' wages like we did in the championship winning season, or maybe even halfway through the season, have a board meeting and say, look, if you guys finish top 4, 25% wage increase or something. I don't know how it works, but use it as a motivator then, but definitely do not use it as a bargaining tool to get big players in from external, is my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, is there anyone in particular that you would look at that the club need to be thinking, right, we need to be up in these numbers and getting you signed on long term, if only to, I mean, because it won't necessarily stop them going. You look at what happened with Maguire, but if only to make sure they maximise the value that we can demand.
Yeah, I think first thing I'll say is, if we look back at what happened when we won the Premier League, not everyone, a lot of the key players got big new contract and a nice big wage rise off of that. Players like VARDY, Schmeichel, even MAHREZ did, Morgan, etc. And if it happens again, not necessarily the Prem, but we get into Europe, I feel the exact same will happen again. We'll have the key players will get longer contracts with more money in them. So a few players I've sort of thought about this and got the player wages up in front of me that I found online. Can't always say they're 100% true. However, based on these numbers, players like James Maddison, recent signing from a championship club in Norwich when he first came, isn't going to be on mega bucks. It says he's only on 55 grand a week. So if we want to keep him, and he's showing how good he is this season, obviously we're going to have to maybe even double that. Big new contract for him. Other young players who have been really impressing this year will get one, like Ben Chilwell, and Ndidi, both on under £80,000 a week. Wouldn't be surprised if they were moved up to 100 or even more. players like Ricardo Pereira will attract a lot of attention. He's been outstanding since he first came. He'll probably get a wage rise. So there's a lot of play. Yuri Tillemans is only on, according to this, around £40,000. He'll get a big wage rise. So, and to just give an idea of the sort of contracts we offered after the Premier League win, Jamie Vardy's on 140 grand and Kasper Schmeichel's on 130. So the two highest earners. So it does show, if you do something amazing at this club and prove your worth and prove you're committed and your quality, we are going to be willing to pay these players big money. So I do think if we do something special this season, the players will be rewarded.
I mean, there's got to be a limit on that, though, hasn't there? I mean, we can't go just offering massive money to everyone and upsetting the apple cart, right? You've got to do it with a bit. You've got to be a bit sensible in who you go and the limit you go for, haven't we?
I think you got to go for sort of take a two-pronged approach. It's those who have been sort of outstanding who deserve it, but it's also those who you think may get potential offers from elsewhere. So it is players that have, like Ndidi, Pereira, Chilwell, Maddison, Tillemans, maybe even Soyuncu, like those core young players who have been absolutely outstanding thus far this season. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if we got into Europe, they'd all be offered a pay rise. Not one of those players is on over 75 grand. So given the money that's in the game today and what those players would get offered at a Man U or at a Spurs or at a Liverpool or whatever.
Spurs don't pay that great, to be fair.
Well, they'd pay more than, for example,
I just don't think
45
is
grand.
on 40 grand. I think that might have been a figure taken from his loan spell or something, because I don't see how them negotiations would have gone at all, to be fair, especially with greedy agents.
So maybe it's not the most accurate sources, but I think the point is right. But they've got to do it correctly. I mean, according to this as well, Everton. I mean, we, like Ed said, we've only got 2 players earning more than £100,000 a week. Everton have got 7.
Exactly.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Man United got 13, including Fred.
I think the shrewdest bit of business or negotiation we could do is tie or extend all these players' contracts and probably include release clauses in them. And that's me guessing that they haven't already got something along those lines in there. I think obviously it's what you see a lot in the game. Well, something Arsenal have done awfully is let players run out their contracts. And I'm probably guessing these players still have 2 or 3 years, but there's no harm in just bumping it up to, you see players given like 6-year contracts now. That might be unrealistic. But certainly add a bit of something into those contracts would probably be the shrewdest bit of business we could do in January through to the summertime, I think.
And again, this isn't the most accurate of sources necessarily, but you can see why players might leave for these so-called bigger clubs. Off the top of your head, how much do you think, again, this is from this source, but how much do you think Man United are paying Harry Maguire?
200.
No, well, let me have a guess as well. Please, Jay. Please let me have a guess. 165.
So according to this, they're paying him £190,000 a week.
I win.
Which would
He's already wearing the armband, to be fair. Well,
but he'd have been far and away Leicester's biggest earner on that sort of money. So we're not necessarily willing to compete with these sort of big clubs at the moment, which is, I guess, is what.
Well, as Ed says, and I'm going to coin one of his phrases, relatively speaking, Leicester aren't in a position commercially. Well, they probably are because of the wealth of our owners, but in relative terms and historic terms, to be paying that would literally be bending the wage structure out.
Here's another bit of info I've got for you. We have recently let go of some of our highest earners. So last season, Islam Slimani was our 4th highest earner, whereas Silva was our 7th highest earner.
They're both on loan, aren't they? They're
Oh
still,
well, they'll be gone soon. Let's put it that way.
that's probably why we've struggled to get rid of them on permanent transfer.
Well, I didn't ever anticipate us mentioning Slimani. Now, this is going off tangent, but by all accounts, they don't quote me, I think he's been playing all right in League One. But I obviously understand that's a totally different league. And yeah, playing a man like him wouldn't really fit what we're doing at the moment at all, not even as an impact sub. Maybe he'd come into discussion if VARDY was to, touch wood, not, get injured. So, but yeah, right now he's well and truly out of the frame, and definitely not a Rodgers type of player, I don't think. No.
But you're right, he is tearing it up. 5 goals, 7 assists in 9 games. He's having a bloody great time over there.
That's for a struggling team, I think. I don't think they're doing great either. But yeah, nonetheless, I think he'll do well to even come back as a Leicester player, I feel, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've seen the last of Slimani. Last question, which is another other side of the coin of the question asked before, and this was from Josh Herod on Facebook. What top players would stay if we missed out on Europe this season? So, I think it's probably easier to answer which players would leave. So say Leicester didn't qualify for Champions League, who are you most concerned about jumping ship, as it were?
I think...
As in, who you think is most likely to go, or who would I be most concerned / disappointed about?
Who's most likely?
Sionchu and Maddison.
Sionchu.
I think I'm actually going to go a bit further. I think Man City are going to do a panic bid for him in January. And by panic, I mean centre-backs in their team are a weakness.
So say if they do, Chris,
yeah.
How much do you think Leicester need to value him at?
Straight away, he has to be matching Maguire for me. As if you can't. He's literally, again, not first name on the team sheet, but he's one of the first, isn't he? He's been absolutely class, and just like with VARDY, it's not just how good he is, it's who can replace him, and ultimately it'd be a big downgrade for whoever a backup is to him, and that means us leaking more goals, and in VARDY's case, not scoring goals, which would leave us in a bit of a mid-table predicament.
After his spoilt child comments today, I would demand Man City give us a straight swap for MAHREZ, get everything signed, and like on Football Manager when you need to confirm the deal, keep pressing delay until it's the final day of the transfer window, and then bail on it.
And then just say
so MAHREZ knows his team doesn't want him, and neither do we.
I was going to ask you guys about this as well. So just for some context, MAHREZ has been quoted in the press today as basically saying that he's lost 2 years of his career at Leicester when we refused to allow him to leave, otherwise translated into demanded the full value because no one actually bid for him. But according to MAHREZ, if he was in a top team after the title-winning year, it would not be in the same story. For me, it's clear I lost 2 years at the highest level. I lost 2 years. Well, he's very hard done by. Chris, is MAHREZ, having said that, do you think he's in danger of sort of almost slightly tarnishing his legacy at Leicester and coming across as a bit ungrateful to the team that took a chance on him and plucked him out of League Two?
This might come across as a horribly judgmental comment, and it's almost an attack on him as a person, I guess. But he never really seems like the happiest or the most appreciative sort of guy, to be fair. That's a damning sort of outlook on him. But now you see him at Man City, and he's sort of, he's cracking a smile. He's sort of happy because he probably does feel like he's actually got he's got more than enough competition in that squad. But at Leicester, he just felt like, we literally brought him to the game, made his career for him, or given him a massive platform. And obviously those quotes, even if they were sort of translated from French, even if 80% of it's true, they are ungrateful. You're warming the bench at Man City, son. You're not tearing trees up now either. I don't know. As a player, big fan of him, but he wasn't exactly winning people over, I don't think, with his glowing personality. So it doesn't come as a shock for me. And I don't think, I don't know, does he come into legend? He's not a Leicester City legend, is he? So I don't. Yeah, he was a great player, one of probably the best players we've ever had. But for those reasons, he wasn't warm. I didn't warm to him personally as a man.
No, and I mean, one of his comments is that he's basically saying that my agent had talked with Arsene Wenger, who really wanted to sign me. It was almost done with Arsenal in the summer of 2016. I was really frustrated. Well, frankly, if he'd have gone to Arsenal in 2016, he'd have won pretty much the same amount of trophies as he has now anyway. I think we've done him a favour, frankly, there. It smacks of disrespect that the club that gave him the opportunity, gave him the chance to shine on the biggest stage, won him a title, should not demand recompense for the player. Do you know what I mean? He's basically saying, "Oh, they should just let me go because of what I did." No, you can get out with that. I hate that attitude. So for me, he really has he's definitely gone down in my estimation. I knew he was a bit.
He cost Leicester I'm gonna go even further on me. He basically made us lose out on probably a bigger transfer fee just because of how desperate he was to sort of leave. And he wasn't giving anywhere near 100% towards the end of his time. Probably for the last season of him being in that shirt, he probably cost us, if anything, it probably ended up costing us points in that last season. He was winning games for us as well. But on the balance of things, I don't think he was really, massively doing that many things for us after the title winning season either. So, but yeah, these comments don't come as a shock. I think it was always going to come out, but yeah, good luck to him. Whether or not he establishes himself in that Man City team it's left to be seen, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a shame, but not a shock, as you said. So, right, listen, on to slightly more positive notes. It is the international break, which is a shame. It's probably come at a reasonable time for Leicester, carrying some good form into it. But England are in action twice. Chile and Maddison have been called up. Hopefully, we see James Maddison in an England shirt. I think he deserves it. But very quickly, guys, let's get your predictions for the games. On Thursday, England play Montenegro at home at Wembley before travelling away on Sunday to Kosovo. Predictions. I know it's hard to predict these games, but what do you reckon, Chris? Firstly,
well, they beat Montenegro 5-1 away. It's with England, I don't even know. They're going to win both. By how many? Montenegro won't score. I'm going to go 5-0. So improvement there. And against Kosovo, obviously they came and just played some wacky football, to be fair.
It was a hell of a game. 5-3, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably the best international game in terms of just openness I've seen in a long time. I do think Kosovo will probably score on home soil, but again, it's not going to be as open as last time. What shall I say? I think, yeah, so 5-0 and 4-1 England.
That Kosovo game was at St Mary's. That ground really has seen some goals. Ed, what do you think then? Your turn to put your neck on the line.
Couple of fours for me.
All the fours.
All the fours. 44.
And 2 clean sheets.
Oh yes.
Always. I think we'll concede because this is England. So I'll give you 3-1 and 2-1 against Kosovo away. Just to worry you.
That's not a very good
the most
result.
Optimistic predictions. Did you ever think you'd see the day, Ed?
No, Chris hates England.
That's a lie, but we'll include that for comedy value. I think what Ed's getting at there is that you think, well, I'm obviously half Polish, and I feel I do probably follow Poland more closely than England, but I don't hate England.
You hate England.
Yeah, I hope they win all the games convincingly, and then they'll bottle it as ever in the Euros, won't they? So we'll see next summer.
So, gents, any other business? As per usual, we usually leave this section to put it back to you, and if there's anything you want to bring up.
I don't think so. Obviously, if Maddison does play for England, obviously the obvious thing is you don't want any injuries or anything nonsensical, especially against these Eastern sides can be a bit more physical sometimes. So you just hope they get protected in those matches.
Yeah, so we'll be watching the games closely, just praying that both Maddison and Chilwell come out on the other side injury-free. So the plan is that the next episode of the First4LCFC podcast will be in a week. It will be something a little bit different because obviously there's no Leicester City football to talk about, but we will look ahead to the upcoming games. So thank you if you listened all the way through. Again, this has been another bumper episode. Thanks to everyone that sent questions in. Hopefully those were some decent answers for you, and we will see you in a week.